Hello and welcome to episode 433 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now I don't say this lightly, today's guest is absolutely fucking mind-blowing. Sorry to swear only 10 seconds in, but this is such a huge deal, it deserves absolutely all the hype. Today's guest on Mark and Me is the absolute legend, Jerry Cantrell. Yes, the brains and the beauty from Alice in Chains joins me today. We get to talk all about his solo albums, we get to talk about the history of Alice in Chains. I get to ask some questions that I've wanted to ask Jerry for over 10 years. So it's been a long time coming, but I'm thrilled it's happened and I can't wait to share it with you all in just a couple of minutes' time. If you're new to Mark and Me and have only started listening because of this interview, I always use the intro to touch base and talk about my previous episode. It only came out last Thursday and I was joined by Matt Thompson from the amazing band The Amazons. Thank you so much to everyone that shared it, all the amazing feedback. I've read all the comments and emails and DMs. I'm so grateful and glad you all enjoyed the interview, and thanks to everyone that shared it. But let's get to today's interview because, my God, Alice in Chains, one of the greatest bands of all time, one of my absolute favourites. So to sit down with Jerry is genuinely one of the podcast's highlights, and I say that over 10 years of almost doing this podcast, this has been one of my favourite moments. So what I want to do now is to get straight to the interview. I'm pinching myself as I say these words, but here's me and Jerry Cantrell talking all things Alice in Chains. Jerry, welcome to the Mark and Me podcast.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, my friend. What I do with all guests, I've had over 400 guests now and nearly hit 10 million downloads. So I have actors, directors, musicians, bands, all different people from all different walks of life. But what I love to do, Jerry, is take it right back to the very beginning. And I'm really intrigued when you were a kid growing up. That first album that was put in your hand, maybe with your pocket money or a family or friend gave you, but that first one you remember playing and just falling in love with instantly.
I think the actual first album that actually I could call my own was given to me by my dad. It was Elton John's Greatest Hits. And he was stationed in Korea for a while, and he came back with a box of records that, that he had collected and traded with other people, and he I guess he got it off a friend of his or whatever, and I remember him going through it, and he pulled that out, and he's like, "Hey, you want this?" I'm gonna get rid of it. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that, and I knew who Elton John was, and I'm like, yeah. So I think that was my first record. Yeah.
I mean, you set the bar pretty high with Elton John, don't you, as a starting point? Like, the foundations are high, and then you're going to build upon that. But still, to this day, I think like Tiny Dancer's one of the greatest songs ever written.
Pretty great. One of the all-time great songwriting teams, Toppin and Elton John, for sure. Yeah.
So live music changed for me. I'm a bit younger than you, but when I was the age of 12, my parents dropped me off in Wolverhampton. They said, "Look, Mark, you need to be good. Don't talk to any strangers. This is your first gig. We'll drop you off here, go in, and then we'll meet you back outside." But it was Green Day on their Dookie tour, and honestly, it changed my life. I was just in absolute awe of like 3 people making that much noise on stage.
Oh, that's a great first gig.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. Some people always lie to me and tell me their first gigs are like Metallica and Nirvana, and I'm like, you're lying. Like, the truth is it wasn't cool, but you tell everyone it is. But I wondered, was yours great, Jerry, or are you going to tell me it's this incredible first show like Elton John, but really it was something embarrassing?
No, it was pretty good. It was Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell.
Wow!
That tour. So that was pretty solid. Pretty solid start for my live experience, and I've been a lifelong Black Sabbath fan, even before then. And then, the change that they went through, and with Dio coming in and putting that record together was pretty impactful for me, And I remember I think it was in the arena in Seattle, and I had to, my friend and I had to take a bus up from Spanaway where we lived, which was, I don't know, it was maybe 15, 20 miles or whatever. But anyway, we got there and it was in an arena, and we were kind of standing on the wall around I guess where the ice hockey rink would go or whatever. But so we were a little bit elevated, and Ronnie came over to the edge of the stage, and we were kind of above everybody, and he gave us the old devil horns, gave us the Maloik, and we kind of gave it back to him. And that was like kind of my first connection with like an actual performer. Like, whoa, that dude saw me. That's pretty wild, and interacted with me, and it was one of my favorite bands, and I loved that record. So it was a pretty magical experience.
You don't do things small, do you? I mean, most bands I talk to are like, oh yeah, I went to see this local band at school, and there was this covers band on the local like youth center. You just went all out and like, fuck it, Black Sabbath.
Well, no, there were some of those. There were some of those too. But if you're talking about like a real like, proper concert, it was that. There was a local band called Rail in Seattle, and my mother used to date this race car driver, and we'd go to the SIR, which was the Seattle International Raceway, which was a drag strip, like funny cars and dragsters, and then the local guys would race each other after the races and stuff, and they made a big deal out of it. They had concerts. I remember there was one of the local bands, Rail, played at one of those. So technically, probably that was probably my first show, but like my first big show was Sabbath. Yeah.
Rail is a great band name.
Yeah.
I want to go and check them out now. I don't know if they've ever done any recordings.
The singer Terry used to wear these kind of knee-high, like kind of Wookiee boots, like fuzzy boots, all the way up to his knees. It was pretty good shtick, actually. And I think they actually won like I thought they never really kind of developed into like probably what they would have liked to, but they there was like an MTV basement tapes thing or something that they won with like a song in the late 80s. But
it's phenomenal. And I suppose your dad's there, he's given you Elton John, you've gone to see Black Sabbath. Is this the stage when you're like, I want to do this? Like, I want to be up there, I want to be like Black Sabbath. Is that all you're thinking at this point, or was it later on after a bit more college and school that made you think, I want to be in a band?
I kind of had the bug from, being a young kid, probably, I got that record from Elton, and I was also into Fleetwood Mac at the time too. Rumors was a huge record.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And those two records were pretty massive, at the time, and I connected to both of them. And I remember I was like over to friends' house, my mother's friends, and they had a kid, so we kind of hung out, and they had a great stereo system, and they had Rumors, and I would just play that thing nonstop with the headphones, and they had some sort of, I don't know, like tennis racket or hanging around, or one of those like stupid wall art like fork and spoon things or something like that hanging on the wall. And I remember like I would like grab it and play like air guitar, while I was sitting there kind of listening to Rumors or whatever. And I remember my mother's friend asking, does he play guitar? And she's like, no, he just doesn't. She's like, well, he looks like he kind of does. You maybe ought to get him one. And she did. She got me a guitar. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And did you do the whole college band thing before, obviously, Alice in Chains? Did you do the covers bands and all that sort of stuff? Or was
Sure. Yeah, of course. That's how you start out, I think starting in probably about junior high, you're going to start jamming with your buddies, and then, those things inevitably flame out or people lose interest. And so, but I was always really interested in it. And so you start putting ads out and looking at the local music rack stuff, like who's, the band's looking for members and blah, 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 and what your influences are and stuff like that. And I would, I would jam with all sorts of guys for, anywhere from a couple of days or a week to a couple of months. And then I would I would always put myself, I didn't know much. So, I was just trying to figure it out and learn it. So inevitably I would always be around guys who were quite a bit better than me and more skilled. And I just kind of absorbed it like a sponge. And in a short period of time, I would kind of progress and get to the point where I feel like I'd surpassed them. I'd kind of learned what I needed to learn to move on to the next thing, and I would just kind of do that. And I kept bouncing around in groups doing that in my little town, and also in Texas. I moved to Texas when I was 19, and I quit college and tried to give the music thing a go. And then I moved back and ran into guys. Try to meet some guys up in Seattle, which was the big town, and that's when I met Sean, Mike, and Lane. Yeah.
Were your parents like, "What the hell are you doing, son? Like you've quit college and now you're putting everything into this band?" Because that's probably most parents' fear, that they turn around and say, I want to be famous in sport or music. Like, that's a dream, son. That doesn't always happen.
Yeah, of course. I had good parents, and they of course advised me to either get a job or get a degree and then a job, and what's the term? Have something to fall back on.
Yeah, massively.
And my attitude was, I'm not falling back. I'm not going to fall back. I'm going to do this until I'm either going to do it or I'm going to crash and burn, but at least I'm going to give it a shot. And they were also supportive, though. My mother was intensely supportive of my music, and I think that was probably one of her dreams when she was young. And she played a bit of like organ and played around the house and sang and stuff. So I got a little bit of the music bug from her. And I remember telling her that I was quitting college, and she gave me the whole you got to have something to fall back on. And I'm like, well, I don't really plan on falling back. Like I'm going to give this a shot. So like, I got to know, if I don't leave now, I'm never going to leave. And so I jumped in a van with a couple of dudes that I barely knew and moved to Texas for a year, and it was fucking great. Yeah. And I met the guys from Pantera out there,
So I think the musicians I've spoken to that have, been in the industry for 25, 30 plus years are the people that never had a plan B. I think the fact that you were like, look, fuck it, I don't need something to fall back on. Like, you believed in what you were doing so strongly is the reason that you're still here today. And this, there was never an option in your brain to be like, oh, well, I'll go and get a degree and I'll work in an office. And then if I can, I'll do a band. It was just, it's the band or nothing, isn't it?
Well, having no safety net is a great motivator. You know what I mean? It's like crack or burn. And so, like, you know what I mean? If you got to put your whole being into it. And I think if you go about anything in life like that, whether it's your relationship, marriage, your kids, your job, whatever, if you got to put your whole being into that. Those are monumental things and worthwhile places to put your energy. And it always felt like music was that to me. So, that's where I kind of put it there. There's also some luck, and running into the guys that I ran into and forming the band that I did with those guys, and time, the timing of like being in Seattle at that time, which was just full of kick-ass bands and we were all basically the same age. It was like a fucking generational thing, in our own hometown, and it felt like you were a part of something, So it was not even just your dream. You were surrounded by a bunch of people who were actually in motion and working toward trying to achieve their dream, and you were all kind of loosely, related and kind of going for the same thing, So it was a supportive community. It was really inspiring,
It was probably like a movement in time, wasn't it? I think there's never been anything like it, with that influx of incredible talent and such a incredible amount of amazing bands to come through, all in this kind of short period of time, and they've left just legendary status on the music industry. And it's like, I've never seen another movement like that.
Yeah, well, it happened, and I've been part of one, and it's something that you're that's happening, and you know, it feels good, and also affirming that, you know, fuck you had a crazy idea and you fucking followed it, and you know, wow, you know, you can actually do this stuff. So, you know, like this is possible. This is as possible as anything else, you know. So
I was looking today, Joe, and it blows my mind that Facelift was 35 years ago. I don't want to make you feel old, but I was like, Christ, like when I look back at albums sometimes and someone tells me it's an anniversary for an album, I have to kind of take a step back and think, no, like, it feels like 20 years ago. And I wondered going into that debut and kind of leaving a mark on the industry, because you only get one shot at your full first debut. Did you feel, I know it's hard to go back 35 years, but did you feel at that time nervous, or were you so comfortable with those incredible musicians and talent with you? Did you just not even kind of take a step back and even analyze what was going on? Were you just living every moment like this is something I don't even need to kind of take an account for, because you're just living in the moment?
well, I think we had, you know, I mean, it was an exciting time, and you know, we met at the end of '87. So we had about 2 years to play club gigs and rehearse and write tunes and jam and kind of form friendships and bonds within the band. And, you know, so like a lot of bands, you know, there's, you have a ton of experience, at least with what is going to go into your first record, you know what I mean? Because you've been kind of working toward it for a bit, you know what I mean? You've already got a handful of good tunes, and then then that in turn puts you in the process to write more to finish it out. And if you're able to, I think for a lot of bands, you know, trying to maybe sometimes you're not completely in focus of like what your identity is, and I think we were pretty close to the mark on Facelift. So, you know, there were still some vestiges of some of the and things that were in there, but I'd say we were about 95% in focus. You know, we were feeling pretty good about it, you know, and we had that material down. And then, you know, the inevitable, the true test is the follow up. You know,
Yeah.
What do you follow that up with, especially if you do have some success with the first record? So the sophomore one is really the test of the tape there, you know, like, okay, are these good, or is these guys good, or is this like a one-hit wonder type deal, or can they follow this up? Because you're totally starting from scratch on the second one, you know. So, and we came up with dirt and sap before it. So, you know, it was a pretty good 3 releases there in a period of about 2 years. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And you took the words out of my mouth, because I was thinking, once you've left that kind of debut and your mark on the industry, you're under pressure, because you haven't got those 3 years to kind of come up with dirt and a follow up and know exactly how the public were going to kind of take to Facelift. So you've got that pressure then that you don't know how it's going to be. It could have been a flop and sold 10 copies and never took off, or it could have been phenomenal and everyone absolutely loved it. So to come back and then go, right, here's Dirt, which I'm not just saying this because you're here, you can listen to my other podcasts, easily one of the top 10 albums of all time. Like, it's an absolute fucking masterpiece and is timeless. And I listen to it still every week, and I'm like, it doesn't sound like it's, you know, 20 whatever it is, 27 years old. Like, it's flawless. And I just wondered, like, did you even anticipate that the world was going to be ready for it? Because let's be honest, it blew up and everybody was talking about it. It was up there with every album, and you must have just been like, am I in a dream? Is someone going to wake me up? Is this a real trick? And is this a cruel joke? Because everybody was talking about this album.
Yeah, you know, it's a hell of a ride to have that sort of experience. But, you know, we always operated from a pretty simple and pretty humble kind of point of view. So, of course, you know, you're a musician and you're a songwriter, and you want your stuff to appeal to an audience, and you want to connect with people. That's what making music is about. It's direct connection. You know, sending the record out into the world on the airwaves, and then actually, you know, going to the towns and showing up to and getting in people's faces that you've made a connection with. But really, we always started simple. So we always felt we had the game won if we all four were in the room and we recorded it. We could look each other in the eye and confidently say, that's the best we can do. That's absolutely the best we can do right now at this time. And we always felt that way. And that's how we wouldn't release an album if we didn't feel like we achieved that for ourselves. So we already had a win, you know what I mean? And we never really lost that approach. We weren't interested in repeating ourselves or writing another Man in the Box or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's been done. So it's time to start from zero. That's exciting, you know, like what the hell can you come up with next? What can you make up next? But really the only barometer is if we're okay and excited about it, there's probably a good chance that the people that were into what you did before are probably going to like that too, a good portion of them anyway. So, you know, and that kind of frees you up to kind of take the music wherever you want to, you know. Our first four releases were Facelift, Sap, Dirt, and Jar of Flies. Let's get two acoustic EPs in between two super heavy records. We took some creative chances early on, and that kind of opened the playing field for us. You know, it was hard for people, I think, to pinpoint what exactly we were. You know, we were everything from alternative to metal to hard rock to you name it. You know, we had five or six descriptors they called us. Couldn't really figure out what it was, and then they went on grunge for all of us. So, you know, like it's all rock and roll to me, man. You know, and but it was cool. You know, you gotta take your shot, and at the end of the day, if you're going into it, just try and please yourselves as a group, as a unit, you know, and you're gonna do all right.
It's unbelievably refreshing to hear that you had that kind of, and it's not arrogance, it's confidence and belief in your own ability as a band, that you were all on the same page, you were all happy, and you're still only on, you know, the very start of your career, and you're still young and you still haven't experienced the world, but you knew exactly that you couldn't give any more. So that record is everything you could ever deliver.
Yeah. And also by doing that, by doing a few records like that and having them connect with people, that gives you the confidence right there. Like, shit, we've done this before. We can do it. Let's make another one. You know, let's go. You know,
I love it.
That's a hell of a motivator, you know.
Because I think it's not, you know, it's not making it negative, but I think a lot of people overanalyze, and I'm the worst. I overthink everything. I listen back to my interview. I'm like, should I keep that bit in? Should I take it out? Should I do this? And you end up becoming so anxious and so protective of your own stuff. It's like a artist not finishing a painting because you're constantly thinking you can change something. But that's really, really refreshing, and it's such a healthy mindset to have, because I suppose you were just seeing the results. Millions of people are buying your albums. Yeah. The crowds are getting bigger. Your band's playing bigger shows. So everything's working. So I suppose don't change it. Yeah,
well, I mean, you know, what you mentioned, though, I mean, that goes on as well. You know, like it's not just like haphazard. We go in and just make a record. It's a lot of work, you know. Well, a lot of time gets put in tinkering with shit. Hey, is this good enough? Yeah, that part kind of sucks. Like, you know, maybe it needs a harmony here. Like, you know, like it's a process. So I guess it's a, you know, it's getting into motion with the process and living with it. And then at some point having to let it go, even if you don't think it's fucking finished. If it's good enough, if it's just good enough. I remember reading or actually, I've read it in an interview, and I also have heard him say it. But Keith Richards was great. You know, he's like, you don't want to fucking do it perfect. You want to be close to perfect. It's good. It's just close to perfect. If it's got the vibe and the attitude, that's more important than fucking technical perfection. You know, that resonates with me, and that's all we were trying to get. You know, something that was kind of a little bit out of control, a little bit across the line, you know, not completely perfect, and fucking human, you know.
A lot of people will always talk, and I see it on a lot of posts on social media, but some people always talk about your unplugged set and comparing it with Nirvana, Pearl Jam. It's obvious that people will always have those comparisons. When I watch back your performance, I've said it on, many platforms. I think you've got the best MTV Unplugged set of all time, and the rawness and everything about the performance is just beautiful. And you've got that forever. It's like captured on this recording that you can listen back to. I wondered, with all the success you've had, with everything that's happened with Alice in Chains, were you nervous going into that, knowing it was a big change for the band? You had to rework the songs, you had to make it work, you were in a studio, you have a live audience watching every move, and you could hear a pin drop at moments of that concert. I wondered, was it really intimidating? Was it not enjoyable because it was so much pressure, or did you just relish in that moment and just think, this is fucking incredible?
Well, I think for us it felt kind of like, we know this stuff. I referenced Sap and Jar of Flies before, and so we'd already done a couple of records that were specifically based on that sort of a format.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we maybe more than some of the other bands, I guess, at that point. But then, you can take heavier tunes and work them into, like Sludge Factory was one, and that's about as heavy as you get. And the test of a good tune is take the amplification and the PA away. Is it still a good song?
So true.
That's a really really interesting test of whether a song is good. If you can boil it down, take away all the bells and whistles, and just break it down to some acoustic guitars and bass drums and vocal, and see if it still works. That's kind of a cool thing too. So I think in some ways we were already kind of prepared for that gig. You know what I mean? And it wasn't really something to be nervous about or anything. I always get a little anxious before any performance. I think any artist would tell you that they get the adrenaline gets going and the butterflies are, because it's a one-time deal. There's no net, like we referenced earlier in this interview.
Yeah.
And that's what rock and roll is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a little dangerous, a little maybe not perfect, a little off pitch, maybe a little off tempo, but it still works. It's a unique experience that only happens one time, right then in front of you, with an audience, and that's a pretty magical thing.
Do you feel more exposed and more nervous when you do your solo work and you try and then know that it's your name, it's not Alice in Chains, it's literally Jerry Cantrell? So do you feel like there's more pressure and you have to take on more responsibility because it's your name on the album and the vinyls and the gig posters? Does it feel more personal?
Well, my name's Alice too. All the guys in the band can say that as well. So
yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't really think it's much different. I mean, it's more exciting, I guess, like getting, I don't know if you want to use a sports metaphor, like just getting ready for the game,
Yeah.
So like, you gotta get blood pumping. You gotta do your exercises, get warmed up, get ready to go. And, not every game goes according to the script. Sometimes you have a bad game or a bad gig too. Those happen. So that's where I think that a little bit of the anxiety comes from. It's like, okay, all right, come on, or if you've been fucking up something like, maybe the last couple of gigs, there's a part in the song that I keep blowing. Like, okay, all right, here it comes. Don't fuck it up. Thinking about it too much. But, those are fun little human elements. So, I think for me, it's pretty much the same, whether in whichever configuration I'm performing. It's live music with live people and a live audience. And so it's a hell of an adrenaline rush. You know what I mean? And it's a time experience, and I enjoy doing both. I really do.
When you're sat at home and you've got maybe an acoustic or your electric guitar and a pen and paper, and you're thinking, right, I feel quite inspired tonight. I'm going to try and write a song, or I'm just going to have a jam and see what works. do you sometimes get to a position where you're like, I can't tell if this is for Alice in Chains or if this is for me? Like, I don't know how to distinguish which way this should go because it's sat on the fence and it's a song that could work for both? Or are you quite big on, we'll write as Alice in Chains as a group and I'll write as myself when I know that, and we won't mix the two, we'll keep them in separate camps?
Well, it's kind of they're kind of inseparable. I mean, I've been the main writer for Alice from the get-go, so the two are kind of intertwined. So really, it just comes down to if Alice is working on something, at the time, and we're planning on making a record, or we're in that kind of creative mode with the band, then those ideas will be focused toward that particular period, and of course that still goes with like showing them to the guys and seeing if they even fucking dig them. They don't like they don't like everything I come up with, and vice versa. You're trying to find something that basically checks all the boxes for all four of you. So it's a process, but I'm just always writing when I feel like I want to create, and I just kind of stockpile ideas and flesh out things, so that I have a few semi-complete songs in the pocket to be able to roll into any session. So for the last couple of years, Alice has not really been focused on making a record. That's probably going to change in the near future here at some point, but I wanted to take the time to work on a couple of records on my own. I hadn't done that in about 20 years.
Wow.
Because most of my focus is with Alice, and so I hadn't really had that experience, and it kind of coincidentally, the two records I made, Buggy Depot and Degradation Ship, they were made in about a 2 or 3 year period, and Brighton and I Want Blood were also kind of made back to back in a 2-3 year period as well. So kind of interesting, little kind of completion of the circle there. So
yeah, I'm thinking to myself now, is it going to be a case of new Alice in Chains in a couple of years, and then maybe in 4 or 5 years,
another 20 years,
yeah, and then 2 more Jerry solo albums, yeah.
Well, you know what? If that's the way it works out, it's been working so far. That's fine by me. I enjoy working in both configurations. So I love. Of course, I've dedicated my life as well as the fellas to Alice and making music that we feel good about, and trying to move the book forward, write a few chapters in the book, see what we can pull off and get away with, and I also really enjoy being outside of that too, outside of what I'm mostly kind of known for, and kind of focus more on being like a songwriter outside of that. That's fun too, so.
I was thinking, with yourself and having this legacy of Alice and obviously your solo stuff, is there anything you've still yet to achieve? And I know that's crazy when you've been in one of the biggest bands of all time. You're genuinely a legend in the industry. But is there still something that you're like, I don't know, I want to do a score for a film, or I want to direct something, or I want to make a film, or I want to do... Is there still something you feel like I've still got this buzz inside me that I need to tick off on this list?
Yeah. I mean, the drive is still there, and I think that should be apparent from the last couple of years of what I've kind of been doing
massively
personally with the creative groups that I've been involved with, including Alice. And I just fell in my lap 3 weeks ago. Lars, my buddy Lars, called me up, and he was working with Ludwig Göransson on a score for a movie called Sinners, which is going to come out in a couple of days. And he said the director Ryan Coogler and a lot of Alice and stuff while they were kind of working on this movie, and Ludwig had this piece of music which was kind of like the theme of the whole movie. It kind of recurs throughout the movie, and he wanted me to try to write a song to it. So in touch with them, that was like 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and I delivered it last week, and it turned out really great. It's a song called In Moonlight, and it's going to be on the soundtrack for Sinners that comes out on the 18th, I think. So, shit's always happening, it's, opportunities present themselves where they do. I think in this business for me, you got to have patience. You got to have patience, not to force shit. It's okay to step away once in a while, recharge your batteries, keep creative during that whole period, and have a long view. Like it's not about short sprints; it's about marathon. You want to last, and try to keep that creative fire alive, so that when the opportunities present themselves, or you create the opportunities, for yourself just by being in motion with other talented people. That's enough for me. I did a tour last summer with my friend Gavin Rossdale.
Oh wow, yeah, Bush, yeah.
On the I Want Blood tour, I went out with them. It was kind of like a pre-tour before my album dropped, and we did an interview together. And he said something that really stuck with me. So inevitably, somebody's like, what's your favorite gig? What was your favorite gig ever? And I'm horrible at that shit, favorites. And he's like, the next one. And like, fuck, that's fucking perfect, man. The next one, that's the best gig. That's my best gig. The fucking next one. That's a good attitude and a good view, and I relate to that.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to write that down, because people always say, who's your favorite guest that's been on the podcast? And I'm always like, there's 430. So my answer now from this day forward is always going to be the next one.
The next one. Yeah.
So thanks to you and Gavin for that, because I've always struggled to answer that one.
There you go. Yeah.
One of the things that I've done in this podcast, and everybody knows this, is one of my favorite films ever. I've got a tattoo, and Cameron Crowe is an absolute genius, but Almost Famous is truly a work of art. And to see you work with him in Singles, and obviously have a relationship, I just wondered, because you probably haven't been asked about this for a long time, what it was like working with Cameron Crowe, because I've heard he plays music always on set to try and create a vibe and an atmosphere. And I just wondered, 35 years ago Singles came out, and I just wondered, you must have had great memories of being involved in these films, and with such an incredible talent.
Yeah, he lives and breathes music, and the guy was interviewing Zeppelin when he was a teenager. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, that's how in love with rock and roll that dude is. And we're cut from a similar cloth. We're part of an extended family of creative people who share a lot of contacts, friends. You know what I mean? And it's always inspiring to be around him. He's always got such a great positive energy, laid back, cool, and I've had the opportunity to work with him a good handful of times, and would be very happy to work with him anytime. He's just great to be around. He's a really talented person, and not many people have such an encyclopedic knowledge of not only music and film, together, and to be just such a cool dude,
I want him on the podcast, and I think genuinely, it would have to be like a 10-hour special, because how do you try and talk about his career and his taste of music in an hour? Like, I think it would have to be like the first ever 24-hour podcast.
How do you eat an elephant, man? One bite at a time.
Is it true that you were going to be part of the film Almost Famous, or is that just some internet rumor that he wanted you to play the bass player in the band of Stillwater, or is that just a silly playground gossip rumor that doesn't actually have any weight to it?
We did have some discussions about it, and he had I had done Singles, and I had done a cameo with Tom Cruise and
Joe McGuire, yeah.
It was Jesus of Copy Matt, and we did have some preliminary discussions about it, and it just didn't work out with like scheduling, and I think I was in the middle of supporting Degradation Trip or making that record or whatever, and so I wasn't able to take him up on that. But we did have some discussions, and the conversations I remember having was the bass player, often is the guy that's overlooked in the band, you know what I mean? And so I think that was going to kind of be my character, but he was also kind of a little indignant about it too, and like a super know-it-all, and he was like a McCartney cheerleader, as and that was awesome, So everything was McCartney. Anytime any conversations came up about some other bass player, I would just jump off the top rope and come in with McCartney, like.
Oh man, that sounds so good.
Anyway, we had some discussions like that, and it didn't end up coming to be, but it was fun even just to be and just have a few fucking conversations with him about it. The movie's great.
Oh, the best, absolutely incredible. And I think obviously the fans that are listening now will be like, why did you not ask him what he's up to in the future? But I can see that you're really busy playing a lot of shows with Alice coming up, lots of tour dates. A hell of a lot, and you're going to come to the UK and play Download, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah, man. We got Alice coming up here in a couple of weeks in the States, and then and I'll be coming over for the European leg of the I Want Blood tour, and then right after that, I think I'm just going to stay because Alice comes back over, is going to come over and be part of the Black Sabbath celebration, so. And then I maybe do another run through the States in the fall, and to kind of close out the campaign, and then we'll see where we go from there. That'll take me into next year. Yeah.
So busy, but Download's going to be awesome because I'll be there doing press, and I hope I actually get to see you in the flesh. But like that, that's
always
such
cool playing Download.
Yeah, what a crowd! Like, and the lineup is so diverse. You've got new talent with Sleep Token. You've got the classics. You've got a lot more of a spread of genre now. It's not just metal. You've got punk, you've got rock, you've got even sort of indie bands. And I think it's so great to kind of cater to all the
needs.
That's how it should be. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it should be. My favorite. I mean, some festivals are cool that are a thing. Like Hellfest is always badass, and that's about as heavy as you get that lineup generally. And I've been fortunate to be a part of that. Many times I'm going to play it again when I'm over there as well. But some of my favorite festivals are the ones that are super diverse. There's like all sorts of music and like, holy shit, they got this band and this band and this band, on topically that have nothing to do with one another, but we all share a musical thread, and we all speak to different audiences, or audiences overlap. Music's music. There's two kinds of music: good music and bad music. So,
yeah,
there's no other style or type. It's just either good or bad. So, like, usually at a festival, you're going to get the best of the best. And I like lineups that are diversified.
This Black Sabbath gig we've got, because obviously I'm not far from Birmingham. I live about an hour away from Birmingham. I thought it was one of those kind of AI generated fake posters of like a dream gig. And I kept looking at the lineup and I kept thinking, this isn't real. And then, they added Tool and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. And I was thinking, this is one of those dream posters that you can make, like a generator. And then I realized it was real. And my God, that's going to be such an incredible day for you.
It's going to be, of course it's going to be fucking awesome for us. But more importantly, who we want it to be awesome for is Black Sabbath and us.
Yeah.
So. And the audience, of course, but in that order, I think that Black Sabbath and Ozzy have been so instrumental and to all of us, all sorts of strains of connections and fans and personal connections. Hell, we got a bass player from Ozzy,
Yeah,
what I mean? So, as well as one of our first early breaks, and have maintained a great relationship, with him. His Black Sabbath is such a cornerstone for all of us, and so to have one final opportunity with all four of them to show up there and celebrate him and be a part of that celebration is going to be like a very special thing.
Do you, and I know you may have not been asked this yet, but do you want an extra spare backup guitar tech that day? who only lives an hour away, who can stand and just hold your plectrums for you, because getting a ticket was impossible. And surely it would just be good to have someone around just in case you need an extra plectrum. You know, surely you could get me in that way and just be like, he's my guitar pick tech.
I'll put you at the top of the list.
Yeah. If you can justify me getting in by being your guitar plectrum tech.
First alternate. Yeah, there you go. You're on. Yeah.
I would love that.
My guy goes down, you're in.
Amazing. I'm going to hold you to that. But then suddenly your guitar tech gets really ill 2 days before, and you'll be like, oh my God, Mark's poisoned him. But,
hey, man, done it before. The show must go on.
So I'm back up for his main guitar tech. That sounds good. That'll do enough for me to try and get in.
First alternative, man. Yeah.
Perfect.
First alternate. There you go. Yeah.
My final question for you today, and what I love to do with every guest that comes on, and it's a big question, but I do put you on the spot a little bit here, is with every guest that comes on Mark and me, they get to choose the song that's played at the very end. So as this interview is all edited and ready for the world to listen to, you can pick any song by any band in the history of music. And you've already said there's either good bands or there's bad bands. So I'm hoping it's a good band you pick. And I'm putting you on the spot today, Jerry, but what's the song?
I didn't really say good bands and bad bands.
Good music. Yeah, that's fair.
Music. Yeah.
So I'm hoping you pick good music. That's fair. And I would love to know what's the song that came to your heart before any other. And there might be 5,000 songs in your head right now, but if you can get it down to one, and that one that came to your soul when I asked the question, I'd love to know what it was that came to the top.
Oh boy. I don't know. Play Mean Streets, Van Halen.
Oh, yeah. Come on. Why was it that one? Why did that one come to the top?
I was driving around in the car last night, and that fucking rolled through, and I love Van Halen. And that's a mean song and a great closer. There you go.
Awesome. Jerry, genuinely, I've been doing this podcast almost 9 years now. I had a list when I started of like dream guests, and some of them I always thought would never happen. I love films. I had Kevin Smith, Cameron Crowe. I've ticked off nearly every name. But right up the top of that list was you, and I always wondered when our paths would cross, if it was at a festival when you've got 10 minutes and someone in the background's already 10, you've got 2 minutes left. And I thought, that's not how I want to speak to Jerry. I want an hour. I want to sit down and talk without somebody saying 1 minute to go, come on, fuck off. And
10 bands play in the background. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like but I'm so grateful that you've given me your time today, and I will be at the UK shows, I will be at Download, I will come and say hello if you're doing any press, and if you're not, I'll be right at the front. And I'm really looking forward to being your guitar tech as well in Birmingham.
I'm sure I'll see you there, man. All right, thanks for having me on.
So there's my interview with me and Jerry. What an amazing guy. My God, so humble, one of the greatest songwriters, guitarists, vocalists of my generation. To sit down and actually talk to this legend is truly a dream come true. So I want to say a massive thanks to Jerry for coming on the podcast. I can't wait to see your solo set at Download this year. I can't wait to see you on your UK tour. I hope it isn't that long until we see Alice in Chains in the UK again. Since recording this episode, obviously the news has come out that the drummer was taken very ill, so they've cancelled a lot of their dates. So my thoughts go out to the band at this difficult time. And I do want to also mention Jerry's album, which is called I Want Blood, which is out now. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's been out a while now, but it's great. You need to go and listen, and if you haven't, go and buy it. And then make sure you go to some of the dates that are mentioned on his website, or I'll put them in my notes on this episode, because you have to go and see him live. He's absolutely unbelievable. And if you're at Download this year, let me know. I can't wait to see loads of you there and have a great time this summer. Now, if you're listening to this episode and you've really enjoyed it, you're a massive fan of Jerry's or Alice in Chains or just music in general, please take the time to hit that share button on the episode. It's really simple. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon Music, there will be a share button. Put it as your Instagram story. Put it as your Facebook update. just share my actual post if you see it on Twitter or Facebook or TikTok. It really helps the podcast, gets the word out there, and literally costs you nothing. It's just literally the touch of a couple of buttons, but makes a huge difference to Mark and me. Now, before I go, also I want to mention that I do have a Patreon account. I can't keep the lights on to this podcast if you don't support me on there. It's really easy. It's really simple. You go on markandme.com. There's a link. You can sign up for as little as £1 a month. All that goes back into the kitty for Mark and me. It then allows me to go out there and record more interviews and travel the country for you guys at home, host a podcast on all these different directories, which doesn't come cheap, and I don't make any money off it. It all goes right back into the production of Mark and me. I also want to give a shout out to the two sponsors of Mark and me. Firstly, Richer Sounds. If you love music, TV, video, anything to do with audio and visual, go on richersounds.com or visit any of their high street stores. And secondly, the great folks at Vice Press. If you love prints, art, anything to do with movies, it's all licensed prints and posters. Go on vicepress.com, use the discount code MarkandMe10, that's the number 10, and you'll save yourself 10% off your first purchase. It's really simple, and those guys deserve all the praise that they can get. Right guys, I'm going to go now because I've got another huge episode coming at the end of the week. It's another pinch me moment and I can't wait to share it with you. But stay tuned on all my socials for little clues and hints to find out who it is. But until then, look after yourself, go and listen to Jerry, go and listen to Alice in Chains, go and buy yourself a ticket, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
this desperate part of town turns you from hunted into hunter. You go and hunt somebody down.